The action role-playing game has gained a lot of popularity in recent years. Have you noticed people now bitch about all sorts of stuff? Back when there was only 2 games, we loved every second of what we got. I mean, have you seen Darkstone? Fucking look at this. People love this game unconditionally. When it debuted, there was a lot of buzz from Diablo and friends, and then a decade passed while no one really cared. Like, there was Torchlight, what the fuck is that? And then suddenly, the moment this game came out, there was a lot more buzz about how the genre should be made. And for my own sick curiosity, I've gone through forums, developer commentaries, hell, literally Reddit, and there's just so much controversy about what the genre needs to be good. You have your average bears saying that it's fine if you get 70 hours out of a $70 game because it's an efficient money to fun ratio, and then you have ARPG fans who are pissed off beyond fucking compare if you suggest the game shouldn't at least last 10,000 hours. Seems like a new trend. I've seen debates rage on a lot more recently. Path of Exile, Diablo 4, Minecraft Dungeons, all the greats. There's just a lot of people discussing traits like what fun endgame looks like, how itemization should be, who should lose their jobs for making a bad game, name calling like White Knight, dumbass, bootlicker, Chad God, base to video creation seer, shill, dickhead, shillhead, on and on. There's a lot of things you hear in this space, and it got me thinking, if it were me, if I were Chris Will or Rod Ferg or Will Rod or anyone else making video games, what would be my direction? As someone who has played and enjoyed ARPGs, what would my first order be? It's good combat. Just make the gameplay actually fun. Just for fuck's sake. There are many other details, but yeah, hang tight just for a second. Combat is the backbone. Forget your perspective, forget your... Well, actually, wait a second. No cash shop instantly. Burn in hell immediately. Bobby, come on, don't get up and leave now. Never mind, I knew we wouldn't see eye to eye on this, but the one thing the game has to have at least is fun gameplay. Although defining gameplay in an action role-playing game is actually challenging to begin with, because what exactly are we talking about? There's technically gameplay to walking around and interacting with NPCs, there's gameplay to making choices and preemptive decision-making, the action component has loads of interpretation. There's a million factors that could be seen as fun or tedious, and it becomes tedious and not fun to discuss what they are. It's hard to figure out what everyone wants, but you're here to have my opinion, right? That's why you're here, to hear what I hold dear. Well, you know what? You literally know what? Let's just build an entire fucking game. That's right, I'm busting open my hidden folders. Here's how I would structure and build the best ARPG of all time. To accomplish this, I'll walk through every step of my own broad design process, and I'll whittle down to a cohesive vision by the end. Funnily enough, I actually do have a working document, like IRL thoughts and plans, but I'm an editor, not a game creator, so I'm happy to reveal some of my ideas. Basically, let's get to fixing that broken sink because we got a bunch of leaks today. Game title, Freaktown, an isometric ARPG in a modern setting, because where is it written? We always have to be in the dark ages. I want to have hamburgers in my game. I want to fight actual people. Mike Tyson is here. We only have a bit of maintenance before we discuss the game in any kind of depth. Let me tell you about my overall game design philosophy first. ARPGs are not supposed to be completed and then forgotten immediately. They should promote experimentation and be a source of routine and addicting farming, a comfortable game to play where you can just go to it whenever you want. If you don't make an experience where you want to skip work to go through another 50 dungeons, you've made a mistake somewhere. In my opinion, the paramount and most important thing that binds a player to a game for a long stretch of time is difficulty. If you have an experience that doesn't demand the player take advantage of your systems to succeed, those systems are inherently pointless, meaning you're wasting time designing stuff. But additionally, the balance of making something just the perfect amount of challenging is incredibly important. If your game is simply too hard, has too much of an ass pain, you're going to lose your audience. Too easy, and most people will decide your game is boring after a brief period. I want abilities to start off feeble but have the potential to clear screens like crazy. I want bosses to be incredible mammoth challenges, but you can potentially reach a point where they're trivial. The important thing is that it comes as a result of the player's ingenuity and effort. I don't want anything given to me for free. I want the fireball to be ballsack at first. I want the huge swing to be huge shit when you begin. The gear to be ballsack as well. But when the game has too forgiving of a curve, nothing you design will matter. It's all going to be ignored. Imagine we had Grim Cock, the cocky monster. Now, he needs to be hard as hell. I want him to be scary, but when you start playing around with more of the systems, planning better, you can start optimizing. That kind of potential to grow is not something that's easy to get right, but seeing how we're in control of the entire experience, enemy and player strength and all, there's no excuse to not try and make every encounter as interesting as possible. Really, think right now of any game you've played that you enjoy. Chances are there was a hindrance to your plans somewhere, a worry, an understanding that you are being presented with a challenge. Without any inkling of thought being needed, you're left with a one-tone, boring trot through a world that you could care less about. But add the bomber skeletons or a gremlin with a Glock, something spicy and preferably flirting with the border between tolerable and annoying as fuck, delete this, and suddenly you've got something good. And don't tell me that difficulty is the death of a mainstream appeal. I personally don't think casual audiences will leave because something is hard. Look at the From Software games. There's a huge market of players who like getting excremented on. Those games do not handhold. They're not going to get that much easier easier either. In fact, sometimes you're aware that your entire build, the strategies you've used up to a point, are not ideal. You have the wrong strengths and weaknesses for a new situation. I think that's incredible. It's something that makes you care about your choices and might encourage you to play the whole game again once you're done. Comparatively to the mostly current industry standard of instantly dumping on the world because you can read, hell, maybe you can succeed even without reading just by pressing buttons at random. I genuinely hate games with this kind of approach. This is why you'll find me playing Bayou Billy and hating life more often than you'll see me in Dora the Explorer for the DS. This game is like made for little girls, what the fuck? But challenge in combat is mostly what I'm talking about, because you can make all the other details annoying and it actually will make the game more annoying. Fancy that. Recent games like Diablo 4 have illuminated what challenges gamers don't want to deal with, and it's tedium like expensive gold costs, limited stash space, meta stuff like long walks, arbitrary wait times, busy work. The balance is where it's hard, and the truth that makes it annoying is that some people are completely stupid and others are way too big head. They won't miss a step. How can you possibly create a product where both camps can enjoy themselves? Well, while technically probably impossible, your best attempt is to make it satisfying. A game should be that primarily, the basic aspect of making a player realize, holy shit, I'm not bored. And for that to work as well as possible for the wide range of players, you have to make the experience hard but fair, as if that's easy. And I'm not saying it is, but fuck it, it can be done. In many ways, in my mind, difficulty does not have complete control over fun. It's actually just an enhancer, a spice. That's why I'd focus on satisfying gameplay, but have it test you as much as it can. But back to the more specific design document. First thing is the title screen. Buttons, single player. Yeah, that's right, single fucking player, offline, because I feel like the world of perpetually online is damaging the once fun, free nature of a gamer's imagination. I want the freedom to cheat in a private environment if I want to. Let's get crazy, let's have a modding environment. Some people think that's a bad thing for your product, but I don't understand why. It's content I don't have to make, it's free. Any strategy to retain player involvement is important. Also, by the way, I already said it, from the title screen there's no MTX. I'm not having it in my game. There's going to be 3 buttons: play game, options, and game off. That's all you need. No paid progression at all. Hell, have free statistics, have a profile with achievements and things you've done, but it's superfluous. It doesn't matter for anything other than cheap dopamine hits. Give it a nice bell, you know, see, like that. Satisfaction at every turn. Alright, let's start here with character creation, and I'm not wasting time with a Sims interface. You see the top of heads, not the bottom of asses, so say goodbye to 4 types of hair or whatever the fuck we have here. Instead, let's make some really cool designs and call it a day. Also, for the record, I'm not going to be too specific today. Like, the specific number of classes isn't so important. If I went through all the math involved with balancing and differentiating them, we'd be here all day. And I'll reiterate, I'm not a game designer. It's not something I'm just going to wing. But I feel like, alright, I'll give you a loose number of 5 classes. That would be reasonable. A lot of games have done this. You could strive to make each one have a lot more options instead of making a ton of classes that feel homogenized. Really work on the fantasy of each one you create. That being said, it's a modern setting, so you can have fun things like, instead of a mage, you've got the chemist. Instead of a warrior, you've got the gym rat. Stupid shit, zany fun, that's what I would go for. And to supplement that, I wouldn't go for insane cutting-edge 3D graphics. I'd do stylized, more like a comic book. Once in the game, things need to begin fast. Talk to any ARPG fan about their favorite game in the genre. I guarantee 99% of them don't know anything about the fucking story. Story is not ideally conveyed in this medium. People are impatient, they want to attack things and get stronger. Get them to that action in the easiest way possible. I'm more surprised that games don't give you a drive-by exposition, like character dialogue follow you as you play. It's regrettable that we're mostly a bunch of primates with ADD, but ADD additionally make your towns consolidated. Once again, Diablo 4 really revealed this one to me. No one seems to like the severely spread out nature of NPCs that we have to interact with. And why would they? This is called padding. It means you have such small confidence in your player base enjoying the actual game for a long stretch of time that you're arbitrarily slowing them down. You're making things take longer to complete. And surprisingly, that does not keep the ADD apes such as myself hanging out longer. I'm out of the experience as soon as I realize I'm spending most of my time walking or waiting. But okay, we've got a small starting area. We're in the game quickly, able to play as fast as we want. From here, we can talk about the actual building that you'll be doing. Normally in these types of games, you level up and are drip-fed options to build your character, lest you get all the powerful shit too early. But why not distribute the setup? Make nothing particularly better than the rest. Have a horizontal skill tree that allows you to pick any starting point you want. We'll use 5 made-up spells here, instead of Fireball, Fireballer, Fireballist, Fireball Most, and fucking Fireballer Most of Destiny. We'll have this consolidated into a single concept of Fireball, and then we'll have Ice Ball, Thunderball, Earthball, My Ball, and then you're allowed to go with whatever you want. The progression allows for a more in-depth creation of that power, but each one is as valid as the next for various purposes. Gone is the idea that we progress from things we don't want to use towards things that we actually are interested in using. Similarly, you need a host of cool passive abilities and have them available ready to go every time you level. A game I do enjoy, Torchlight 2, annoyed the piss out of me because it arbitrarily caps the skill power you're allowed to allocate if you're not a high enough level, meaning sometimes you just have nothing you want to use a skill point on. This ties more into the gear section, but we'll have a standard attribute system on level up, because the more excitement each level gives the player, the better. No need to reinvent everything. The system is always seemed ideal to me. I certainly hate when we don't get to pick shit all on a level up. I mean, I don't know how you feel. Mail me your thoughts and we can talk about this in depth. I understand that skills being horizontal and equal as possible is vaguely chaotic from the get-go, but you can balance this. It just means that there's got to be more than 2 options that should be good. Each skill is designed to do something unique and enjoyable. There's obviously always going to be a meta option, but maybe blur it as much as you can to make everything seem strong. And the best way you can finagle your skill power is with enemies. I think you need immunity, size difference, recognizability, intimidation. All of these factors are remarkably important for your roster of monsters. If they just become metaphorical bowling pins, suck balls, bad design. If you're on the ice user and you find something specifically immune to ice, that kind of shit will stick in a player's head. And it will make them explore alternatives, ways to make it easier on themselves. Maybe they'll specialize in 2 schools of attacks. Maybe they'll just know how to avoid areas, go around the encounter. You need a sprinkle here. Too much of everything in the game can't die and you've gone too far. And furthermore, I think the long-standing system of having randomly spawning unique packs is a great move, and I want these monsters to have a large array of stuff. I'm talking an aura that turns the environment around you into carpet cleaner. I'm talking reduce the world into liquid ass, fearful abilities, that kind of thing. Huge crit damage or critical rate, lowering your resistance or buffing their own. But if I've realized what one thing people don't like dealing with enemies, it's ridiculous crowd control. I'm not saying things shouldn't slow you down, but a hard freeze, a total lockup of your controls, never. Not in my game. There's no world where I'm removing the action from an ARPG. We're gonna keep moving, keep shooting. It's how we make this an equal parts hardcore game and a chill out one at the same time. Also, scaling is just so fucking deleted, you have no idea. I'm not scaling monsters so that they're always the exact same strength as you. Again, I'm making the whole game. I can decide where the challenge should progress to. I'm not gonna just make a bunch of monster models that have no difference to one another. The big, literally Titanic boat will have more HP than the Titanic ant. That's how it goes. That's how I want the game to be. Really, that's my entire philosophy, control. You can go at the rate you want, and that rate is slower or faster based on what systems you're aware of. If you're new, you won't be able to brazenly blast, but if you're old, you're bold, gold, and I would hope sold on how good the combat loop can be. Really what I'm doing is I'm making a game that I want to play myself here, and I know that when I remember an enemy in my sleep years later, it was made well. But what do we use on all these well-made monsters? Well, a little bit of well-made itemization. First bullet point, have absolutely 0 class restrictions on general gear. Anyone can use any item as long as they have enough attributes to use it. I think a spellcaster should be allowed to use extremely large, heavy, oversized, scary, gigantic hammers, actual item type, but have your traditional level up attribute shenanigans as a hamper to character having high defense, high offense, high spellcasting, high developers, that kind of thing. It can be done. I believe in the power of math to balance a bunch of this. That being said, I think some classes being able to use specific pieces makes for a more exciting experience when actually obtaining new things. Personally, I hate it when you say pick the mailman and now you're only finding stuff you want for the mailman. No, I want everything on the table, so you're finding a mailbag, sure, but you can also get stuff not designed for your class. Makes you preemptively think maybe I'll re-roll, try something new. And with regards to gear, I want a game where I can go 40 hours without finding a good pants upgrade. Also, pants slot. Why does no one have that in ARPGs? I mean, thank you, Titan Quest and Grim Dawn. That's huge. I love having pants available. Anyway, sorry, segued from my point. Gear shouldn't be dropping all the live long day. If you like ARPGs, what do you mean you don't? Okay, fine, whatever. Fucking ruining the point. If you're a huge Chad and actually like ARPGs, you must have fond memories of that special drop, a major item that surprised you, something that made your stomach fall, and even on a smaller scale, stuff that made you go, finally, that's such a good upgrade. These pants are starting to stink, they've been on me so long. The point is, if you don't have that feeling, you're missing a fundamental part of the fun. I would have scarce drops that you can influence maybe through a variety of methods. You could use difficulties, a way to scale challenges up and down, stats on things like magic find. There's so much that can be done to make the player feel in control of finding stuff, without there being an insane number of items to just sift through. Now, in terms of where gear should drop, I'm kind of in the mind it should be a large net wherever you go. Endgame and beginning game stuff can drop in tandem. Obviously, let it scale with levels of monsters. Hell, let it be known what enemies have the best chance to drop what stuff you're looking for. If the players find out that the large and in charge mean and mighty drill sarge drops the enlarged barge of infinite destinarge, then you would say, boy, that's a stupid fucking item name. I want it. I'm gonna farm this guy. To me, that's fun, and in my opinion, farming needs to be fun because it's basically the whole point of the game. You make this as good as possible by making as many things that drop be build defining and interesting. Despite everyone being allowed to use mostly everything, work to make some items obviously better for others. Have random modifiers for classes you aren't playing. It adds to the RPG nature of things. And have trading, you fuckers. The economy needs to be healthy in a game like this. It makes shit even more fun to find. I don't know about sub drops like currency or bits that give you this and that. There's room to make them all good. I would make them scarce and effective rather than have a billion different little things. You know, hello, Path of Exile. I want most of my drops to carry excitement. And finally, the gear itself. Oh boy, this notepad document here is crammed with thoughts. It needs to be chunky. I'm talking Skippy. I'm talking Kong. These items should be massive. I need the stats to be bold, big, and understandable. I don't want to go the Path of Exile route here, which I I respect, mind you, but there's too much of an emphasis on specific and oftentimes unintuitive interaction. X is dependent on Y, but only if Z. No. I want fire damage more, club attacks now shoot tornadoes, +5 to skill, defenses, resistances, with all unique interactions being more based around your skill choices than your gear. Gear being there for stats and power primarily makes me happy. Builds requiring specific gear to work does not. Now, there's room for gear to say it breaks enemy fire resistance or it has some relationship to your combat approach. That's great, that's fine. Just gotta be gentle about it, don't overfuck it. Now, this is a work in progress idea, as if all this shit isn't, but I want every type of weapon and armor to do something different. Such as swords swing in a different fashion and apply bleeds, hammers hit in a 360-degree radius and knock down enemies, and I want to get a little bit goofier. This is the modern day. Give me the lawnmower, good for AoE. The shovel, add the gardener class. DLC, gear is where we push the limits on gameplay. I've always felt there's a strange lack of creativity with what every weapon does. Basically, remove the artwork and the sound and the weapon functions almost identically, but why not make it where the player might say, I really like having the damage of the head shears, but the range of rakes makes me really want to take this item instead. Doesn't that sound more exciting than bigger stats equal better item at all times? But finally, my proclaimed most important aspect, how do we make an enjoyable combat experience? Well, there's a lot of things that are important, and number one on that list is density or creativity. Why is there two things at number one? What I mean by both of these is that for the most part, it's fun to mow down thousands of enemies. Absolutely feel your class pump. That needs to be the case. I don't want this gross dead screen approach where there's just nothing to deal with, except if the encounter on a fairly empty screen is really good. The mechanics of randomly spawning things is foreign to me. I do not program anything, but surely we can make it have the typical world of tons of weak stuff going around, but then juxtapose it with a random boss encounter, something special, random, out of the blue, a very durable enemy. A group that just makes you head mad, ping-ponging from high-flying explosive action to Ikaruga gameplay. Essentially, we never have long stretches of just walking around. You do need breaks, I'll admit that. It can't just be like Dead Rising's parking garage where you can't even walk around anymore, but the combat needs to come fast and be variable. So if you have a build that clears a lot of things very quickly, you're met with a random encounter boss or something like that that isn't as good for your build. Because nothing seems more inaccessible and boring to me than just watching someone play an ARPG and they just don't have to think about anything anymore. Conversely, since we don't have scaling, some parts of the game should actually have thoughtless gameplay. If you want to go back and farm a specific thing, let it be really easy to annihilate everything. And by the topic of going back, I think I want there to be areas that are fully created and sculpted to be specific and others that are completely random. Some games like Titan Quest, Grim Dawn, Van Helsing went for a totally planned out approach with their maps, and most others go for procedurally generated areas, and I don't know, the merits to both are enjoyable, just have both. Chronicon has both, be like Chronicon, great game. I'd say probably make endgame areas have randomness, early game areas be defined, strike a pleasant balance, and be done with maps. If I had to make a general overall claim about combat, it would be that it needs to be quick and utilize your prior decisions as much as possible. If you built defensively, you'll see how helpful that was. If you built purely offensively, you'll feel the power in everything you do, but things might be a little more dangerous. RPG, role-playing game, good acronym. Feels like it's forgotten in this genre a lot. There should be an incentive to try again with a different approach. Game balance is an art, but there's room to do this correctly. And since I just, like RPGs, we've got potions, just drugs, hard drugs. Town Portal is going to be like calling a cab or something, and all that sort of thing. I just hate the reduction in planning so many games have. Just let me have a bit of pre-combat thought needed. For the moment-by-moment gameplay, have huge satisfaction. The design and graphics and impact is so insanely important for this genre. If you just don't feel it, it sucks. You lose interest. I think Diablo 3 is actually a good example of adding style to things you're doing, giving you little combos for getting a bunch of kills or destroying props. Have visual cues to show how much carnage you're causing. Have stuff like the camera panning back to show you destroying ass on a massive scale. The screen starts breaking if you do 1 million damage. Environmental damage. I don't know, there seems like there's a lot of things you could do that are really cool. Really, I wouldn't aim for any degree of realism here, just like wild, crazy flash. Makes running around mindlessly even more exciting. And finally, what would I do to put this all into an end game? Well, this is where it's probably the most important to have a good idea because this is your game's staying power. There's a lot of ways to make an ARPG keep going, and I feel like Path of Exile has a good system to rip off. Maps with lots of bosses all over the place is ideal. You can't fight every challenge with every build, there's a ton of things to try out and the difficulty is random and dynamic. This is a place where great drops could exist much more readily, and I'd say let it fuse with the regular game. Don't start introducing endgame only after the campaign, let the regular content be hard enough to warrant playing around with the system a little bit, let you in earlier. I didn't mention like crafting or systems like that, but have materials or whatever start dropping from the endgame areas. I always felt that crafting should be reserved for the ending, and if I had to say a system I really enjoyed, Last Epic had a cool crafting interface. It didn't feel too complex and it gave me options that even a small brain like myself felt good about. Where you can rip attributes off of a piece of gear and plop it on another piece, that's simple enough. The strength seems obvious. Even tie it in with my weapon system idea perhaps. Let the lawnmower transfer transform its AoE effect into the single target effect of the folding chair weapon type, you know, invent a lot of weird interactions for crafting to feel very distinct from regular gear. And to make things really pop, give players a special achievement when they complete any of the various secret bosses I'd shove into the game. Have a profile with bells and whistles, tracking for all your accomplishments. It's fun, it gives you UI changes or unlocks character skins. Have a huge, unbelievable completionist aspect to it. That's how you'd make Joe Fuck think, fuck, I want to keep playing this. That's all it needs. Lots of cheap and consistent hits of dopamine. That's a way to make a player think, you know, one more run. I'm thinking RuneScape philosophy. Shove in some wood cutting, level jingles. That's an easy method to make people hang out longer. Am I saying this game is perfect, even just on paper? Yes, but I'm also saying it wouldn't be easy to actually make. Things will get stagnant, discovered, and eventually you will need to update your game to make it continue to have an audience. But it has been proven people will stay with something if it tests them. Path is a great example. The game offers so many things to actually do that you'll likely never try at all. So an ARPG doesn't have to be doomed. In fact, it can just live as long as some games from other genres. It just has to be fun. Well, that about does it. You know, I'm kind of tapped out. Those are my thoughts on the genre as a whole. An asshole. So yeah, basically all I'm saying is that Diablo 2 is the best ARPG ever made.